let me put this on the table. 300,000 people expected by the end of 2017, okay? 58% of them are economic migrants.
Exactly.
So that would be 172,000 people. 84,000 people are here on family reunification. 15% or 43,500 are refugees or for humanitarian cases. Barbara, what are you afraid will happen if too many people come in? What is too many?
I think it's a great, well, I don't know the actual numbers of too many. What I do know is that when you have a great many people coming without language skills or as refugees, or they're coming from places where the culture is so diametrically opposed to ours and so difficult to adjust to, that there are going to be burdens on our social and health and education systems that were perhaps not up to the task. We have a unitary Medicare system. It is stretched to the limits as it is now. We are not giving adequate mental health care to our own citizens at the moment. So people coming from war-torn countries may have mental health issues where they need a great deal of care. I don't see a lot of careful thought going into this. What I do see is a kind of idealistic vision of what kind of country we should be, welcoming and open, and diversity is our strength. I see a kind of a mantra-like belief in the idea that multiculturalism is an endlessly rewarding ideology.
You don't think it's been rewarding for Canada?
It has, up to a point. I do think so. But I can see that in other places in the West, multiculturalism is now being perceived as a failure. We've had 3 heads of state in Europe declare multiculturalism an abject failure. And one of the reasons that they've declared that is because they felt that open immigration could only be a strength for their countries, and it has turned out to be in many ways quite problematic.
Brittany.
When you say multiculturalism is a failure, what you are saying is that people that exist in a country that is not only white are a burden to society, that they're not wanted in society, that somehow they're an ailment to society. Do you see how problematic that statement is? When you say multiculturalism is a failure, you're saying that society should not exist to have a multitude of people from different ethnic backgrounds. So that's a very, very scary and problematic statement. And these are the reasons why we have racist attitudes that exist within our country, and why we're spewing a lot of the white supremacist ideals that continue to exist within Canada. So I need you to be very careful when you say statements like that.
I think you have to be very careful about what you're implying
I'm just unpacking some of the layers of your statement, because
I think you are.
I'm indicative of multiculturalism. My mere presence within this country is indicative of multiculturalism. So it's very offensive, and there's a lot of layers to that statement. But I do also want to say, if we're discussing the impacts of that immigrants and refugees may have on our social support systems, whether that's healthcare, whether that's labor, then we need to go to governments. We need to go to governments and demand more of our systems. Why is our healthcare system failing many of the Canadians that exist here? Why can't we have the proper resources and funding to pour into our healthcare system? We need to ask government of that, and not say that we should not accept a certain amount of refugees or immigrants because our system cannot handle it. That doesn't compute. We need to make sure that we have adequate systems that serve the people and can even serve more. We are a very rich and prosperous country. We should not be selfish or be afraid to open up our borders. We have more than enough room and more than enough money. We need to hold our governments to account and ensure we have a free and democratic society where everybody can thrive, just not those who are privileged enough to make it here, or those who already exist here.
Barbara?
When I say that multiculturalism is not an endlessly giving situation, what I am saying that although I like diversity as much as anyone else, I think that unless diversity is integrated in an incremental way, and if you get great waves of immigration where you don't get the kind of integration that makes for a successful society, it can become problematic. And I'm not casting aspersions on Brittany or on any individual person, and it has nothing to do with individuals per se. It has to do with social flow, and it has to do with building healthy societies. Multiculturalism in its essence seems to suggest, if I'm quoting our Prime Minister, who said a year or two ago, Canada has no core identity. He seemed to be implying that since we don't have any identity of our own, which I think is false, a false statement, that it doesn't matter how many people come in from other cultures, because if our country changes in ways that suit other cultures, that's fine. So it's an attitude that I think was common in other Western countries and has not proved to be so very positive in every aspect.
In those countries. We're going to have to leave it there. Brittany, if you have a response that's about 30 seconds or less, you're welcome to it.
The only response I have in regards to this new immigration announcement is that I was just very disappointed to not hear anything in regards to the Safe Third Country Agreement and the refugees that have been coming at illegal border crossings, given the fact that this government hasn't suspended it. So again, it's all great if we're going to be accepting hundreds of thousands of immigrants, but we're going into winter, and the United States is increasingly unsafe for many asylum seekers and refugees, and it would have been great for this government to at least address that and have some comments in regards to that.
All right. I want to thank you both so much. Interesting conversation. Barbara Kay is a columnist with the National Post, and Brittany Andrew Amofa is a policy and research manager at the Broadbent Institute.